Hi there. Welcome back to Ravenous Babble. My name is Dan, and today I'll be going over the formats of Flesh and Blood. For you new players out there, you may have just learned how to play and you're thinking, well, what's next? What do I do? I'm here hoping to guide you on your path to playing great games. So we'll be going over the formats to see which one might be best suited for you. As far as the formats I'll be covering today, we'll be covering Blitz, Classic Constructed, Ultimate Pit Fight, Commoner, and one unofficial format called Clash. It's a fan-made format that is growing in popularity, and I think it's the best starting point for new players. We'll go over that one at the end. I won't be going over Team Constructed, Booster Draft, or Sealed Deck, because these are formats that are typically the same throughout the different TCGs on the market, so if you played one before, you might not need to hear anything about it. So if you do want to hear about those formats, let me know, and I'll make another video about them. Alright? I'll also be going over the Living Legend system today, which is a unique system to the Flesh and Blood TCG, and very important when it comes to these formats. So without further ado, let's get down to it. The first format we're going over is Classic Constructed. This is the premier tournament format for Flesh and Blood, and if you want to get the full gameplay experience of playing Flesh and Blood, this is the tournament for you. Personally, this is my favorite. For deck construction, you're going to be using an adult hero, and you can have 80 cards maximum in your deck. That's going to include your weapons, your equipment, and the rest of the cards in your deck. You can have up to 3 copies of each unique card, a unique card being the name and the pitch value combined. So let's say you want to run Pummel, right? You can run 3 red Pummels, you can run 3 yellow Pummels, and you can run 3 blue Pummels, which means you technically are allowed to run 9 copies of Pummel overall. Make sense? You can't use young heroes. At one point you were allowed to, but not anymore. It's a story for another day. And in tournaments, the rounds will be 50 minutes long each, best of 1. Now, when you start a match, both players are going to reveal their hero. Then you will randomly determine who's going to go first. Then each player is going to secretly choose their equipment and their weapons, and you're going to cut your deck down to a minimum of 60 cards once all equipment and weapons has been removed from it. You can use more than 60, but you have to present at least 60 cards minimum. Once you've chosen your 60 plus, you shuffle your deck, present it to your opponent to cut. At that time, you both reveal your weapons and equipment and begin the game. The next format I want to go over is Blitz. If you don't have time for a long game like Classic Constructed, or maybe you want to jam multiple games back to back to back within a shorter time frame, Blitz is the format for you. For Blitz, you'll be using a young hero. Your deck will be 40 cards, no more, no less, and you'll have 11 inventory slots to work with, which will include your weapons and equipment. Your deck can contain up to 2 copies of each unique card, and in tournaments, you'll be looking at 30-minute rounds, best of 1. For the start of game procedure, same as Classic Constructed, you're going to reveal your hero, you're going to randomly determine who's going first, and then you're going to secretly choose your equipment and weapons from your inventory. Once you've chosen those, you're going to shuffle up, present your deck to be cut, and then both players will reveal their weapons and equipment and begin the game. So, Blitz is also the only format with a pre-constructed product that you can go out and buy, whether online or at your local game store. A product that you can pick up, crack open, and start jamming games of Flesh and Blood. Now, I'm sure moving forward in the future, we will get products for other format, but at the time of recording, there are only pre-constructed products for Blitz. So, let me show you what products are available for you to purchase. For the Monarch set, we have Bolton, a Light Warrior, Chain, a Shadow Runeblade, Levia, a Shadow Brute, and Prism, a Light Illusionist. For the Tales of Aria set, we have Briar, an Elemental Runeblade, Lexi, an Elemental Ranger, and Oldhim, an Elemental Guardian. For the Uprising set, we have Dromai, a Draconic Illusionist, and Phi, a Draconic Ninja. All of these decks are about $12, give or take. Focused. You might be able to find them cheaper, but $12 isn't that bad. If you're willing to spend a little more, you and your friend could go halfsies on this product, which is the only other Blitz product, the Classic Battles Rhinar vs. Dorinthia. Now, I'm sure this is going to be a series moving forward, kind of like a versus series, but this is the only one we have right now. This MSRP'd for, I believe, $50, but if you can find it for $40 or less, I would recommend $35. It's not a bad deal. You get foil equipment, you get cold foil weapons and heroes, and 2 decks that are pretty well paired against each other. So if you and your friend want to get into the game, try and hunt down one of these bad boys. There's also a chase card in here that is roughly $30 in the Dorinthia deck called Glistening Steelblade. So there's that. Nice little card for your collection. If you want to purchase one of these decks and build up from it, moving to Blitz, Classic Constructed, whatever, I would recommend Dromai. So online you can find quite a few videos on how to upgrade Dromai for about $10, give or take. Solarian Community College has a video, SloopDupe has a video, and I will try to link both of those in this video for you to go watch. Beyond that, you can take her even further for less than $100. You can get her legendary body piece, which is going to make a huge difference in her gameplay. And you can get the Majestic Dragons, which will also help. But yeah, you don't need to go balls to the wall with Dromai in terms of expensive cards to play her effectively. There's a lot of really cool builds out there with her that are budget. So if you want to grab one of those decks and take it to the next level, I would recommend Dromai. The next format we're talking about is Commoner. Commoner has the lowest barrier to entry of all formats in Flesh and Blood. It plays a lot like Blitz, but your games will be a little bit longer, about 5 minutes longer on average. If you have just learned how to play the game and you don't know if you want to spend money on it, spend $5 to $10, you can make a Commoner deck as good as anyone else's. It's great for that. In this format, you'll be using young heroes again, but these heroes can only be rare or common. Your deck size is 40 cards, no more, no less, and can only contain common cards. You'll have 11 inventory cards, which will be your weapons and equipment, but you can have up to 2 rares in your inventory. The rest of the cards have to be common. This is mostly to accommodate for a couple weapons that are rares. In Dynasty, they just released a bunch of rare equipments, which is great support for Commoner, so there's that. You can have up to 2 copies of each unique card in your deck. In tournaments, rounds will be 30 minutes long and best of 1. And exactly the same as Blitz. For the start of game procedure, both players will reveal their hero, randomly determine who's going to go first, secretly select their equipment and weapons, shuffle their deck, present the decks to be cut, reveal their weapon and equipment, and then start the game. Ultimate Pit Fight's a little weird. It's a multiplayer format, which means that you'll be playing with 3 or more people at once. You can use all the Flesh and Blood cards that exist, and it's more social, political. It's meant to be a good time. If you're coming from Magic the Gathering, this is the Flesh and Blood Commander format. It's not going to be exactly the same, but it's as close of an experience as you're going to get. So if you like Commander, this format might be for you. You're going to be using Blitz deck construction rules, which means young heroes. There's also Adjudicator heroes, which can be used in this format. Those are judge promos. You'll have an 11 card inventory, which is, again, your weapons and equipment. You'll have a 40 card deck, no more, no less, and that deck can contain 2 copies of each unique card, just like with Blitz. Now for this format, every card is legal, even the special promo cards like Go Bananas, Taylor, Yorick, etc. Now Yorick is the one exception for official UPF tournaments. He is the only card that's banned in official UPF. As far as game rules, there's a couple notable exceptions when you're playing UPF. Mainly that you can only attack players to your left or right. You can only target players to your left or right. You can only defend for yourself. And a combat chain can only target a single player. So if you want to target another player, you'll have to close the chain out. For start a game procedure, you're going to show up with your 40 cards. You're going to reveal your hero. You're going to pick your equipment and weapons, just like with Blitz. You'll randomly determine who goes first, and you'll start the game after revealing your equipment and weapons. And remember, have a good time. That's what UPF's about. Alright, so let's get into the Living Legend system. This is a very important thing to know about if you plan on getting into Classic Constructed or Blitz. The Living Legend system is unique to Flesh and Blood, in that whenever a hero wins a big tournament or event, that hero will accumulate points. And once they reach a certain threshold of points, they become what we call a living legend. What does that mean? That means that they are effectively banned. Or a better word to use would be retired from that specific format. For Classic Constructed, heroes will need to accumulate 1,000 living legend points to become retired. For Blitz, you will need 500 living legend points. This chart here shows what each event awards as far as living legend points, but over time this list and maybe how the points are accrued will change and be refined. So don't take this snippet for 100% fact. It might be different when you're looking at this video. Now, if you go on the Flesh and Blood website, there's a Living Legend leaderboard. You can see where each hero stands and if they're getting close to Living Legend. At this time, Briar, Warden of Thorns, is at 922 points. She will retire and become a Living Legend at 1,000. So if you're getting into Classic Constructed, maybe don't get a Briar deck. Just a tip. Looking at Blitz, the same can be said for Oldhim. He's at 452 of 500. So if you're getting into Blitz, maybe don't get into Oldhim. Now the Living Legend system is unique also in the sense that heroes have signature weapons, so that when a hero gets retired or hits Living Legend in a format, they will take their weapon with them as well. So Briar, for instance, when Briar becomes a Living Legend in Classic Constructed, Rosetta Thorn will be retired with her and effectively become an illegal card in the format. Make sense? It's a little bit of roleplay flavor, and also it keeps the metagame fresh. You know, it's different, and I'm a big fan of it. Now let's talk about the card legality policy. So I don't want to get too deep into it because this will change over time as the game develops. But just like any other TCG, every format is going to have a banned and suspended list. In this game, we have some special use promos. These are promos that are given out at events and don't really make sense to be used in competitive play. They're more fun than anything. So these cards are banned in everything except for UPF. The Living Legend system that I went over, that's something you have to keep in mind for what cards are legal and illegal when it comes to Classic Constructed and Blitz. This is the current Classic Constructed banned and suspended list. Now sometimes you'll see these suspended cards, right? I mentioned this already. They are effectively banned until something happens. So Bloodsheath Skeletta is suspended or banned until Viscerai Runeblood becomes a living legend. So they're conditional bans, essentially. They will come back at some point. You can see here that the living legends of Classic Constructed are listed here along with their weapons. Here's the Blitz list as well. There's a bit more cards when it comes to the suspended list. Commoner has a couple cards as well that you'll want to look at. And UPF only has one notable ban card, and it's Yorick, Weaver of Tales, but he's only banned at official events. It's actually encouraged that you still play him in social, casual games because he's meant to be played and he's fun. But his effect involves everybody shuffling their decks together and playing out of one deck, so it makes sense for official events. Some people don't want their cards being touched by other people. What are you going to do? Alright, so the last format I'll be talking about today is the Clash format. It's an unofficial, fan-made format made by Ethan Van Sant, also known as Mansant, with special thanks to community members listed here in the graphic. So Clash meets very elegantly between Commoner and Blitz in terms of design. For Commoner, some heroes pretty much can't be played because they don't have specific rares or specializations to actually enable their gameplay strategy, right? So they're essentially useless in Commoner. Blitz, if you're a new player, you might be priced out of the format because of legendaries, right? No one wants that. So if you're getting into the game, if you're new, or you want to try a new hero out, or you're an experienced player, I highly recommend this format. It's a great format. So for this format, you're going to use a young hero. Your deck is going to be 60 cards. You have to present at least 40 cards for the actual match. So your deck, the 60 cards, is going to include your weapons, equipment, and the rest of the cards in your deck. Your hero, weapons, mentors, hero specializations, they can all be any rarity. So Viscerai, technically in this format of mostly commons and rares, can use a Fabled card, because Arcanite Shard is a Viscerai specialization, as an example. Equipment and cards in your deck can only be common or rare. You can have up to 2 copies of each unique card in your deck. Rounds are 30 minutes long each, best of 1. The fact that you add rares here, whereas Commoner doesn't have that, it enables a lot of gameplay strategies for different heroes. So any hero is viable in this format. The graphic here shows an example of what would be legal and what isn't legal. So this is just a Majestic, not a specialization, anything like that. This is a Majestic armor. Can't use those. But a mentor, a specialization, a weapon, and a hero that can be any rarity, they're good to go. Starting game procedures, pretty much exactly the same like any other format. You're going to reveal your hero. You're going to roll to see who goes first. You're going to effectively sideboard by secretly picking your weapons, equipment, and then cutting down to 40 cards for this format. And then once you shuffle and cut, you can reveal all your equipment and weapons and go ahead with the game. Now, this format does follow the Commoner ban list with the addition of Drone of Brutality and Duskblade, because Commoner doesn't care about rares and Majestics. This format doesn't use the Living Legend system, so everyone's legal. So have at it, whatever you want to play. And I highly recommend it. I immediately built a deck for this format as soon as Ethan Van Sant came out with it, and I love it. If you're a new player, you can spend $25 and have a fully fleshed out Clash deck and get the full feel for how a hero should be played. And if you like it, from there, you can move into Blitz, which is my recommendation. And then when you're ready, move up to Classic Constructed, which again is my recommendation. So if you're a new player, Clash, then Blitz, then Classic Constructed. If you want to kind of grow as you play. That's what I recommend. But that's it. That's the formats of Flesh and Blood that I want to discuss today. So I hope that was insightful for you. I hope maybe you know which direction you want to take now, being a new player to the game. And until next time, stay safe, keep playing great games. I'll catch you later. See ya.